I want to tell you something that the fitness industry absolutely does not want you to hear. I spent time analyzing the top-performing YouTube videos on belly fat videos with a combined 1.5 billion views. I looked at the titles, the thumbnails, the promises, and what I found was deeply troubling, not because the people making those videos are dishonest people, but because 97% of those videos are built on a fundamental misunderstanding of how your body actually works. They promise you a flat stomach in 7 days, they show you 5 minutes of crunches, they sell you a magic morning drink, and they do it with a smile so convincing that you think maybe this time it will work. It won't, and today I'm going to tell you exactly why. Because belly fat is not a fitness problem. It is not a laziness problem. It is not even a calorie problem. Belly fat is a hormonal problem. Specifically, it is a symptom of a broken metabolism. And you cannot out-exercise a broken metabolism. You have to heal it. And that is a very different process than anything those videos are selling you. I'm Dr. Elizabeth Monroe, and this is the conversation your doctor probably hasn't had with you yet. Let's get into it. Let me give you a picture of what we're dealing with. Of those 1.5 billion views, the vast majority went to videos promising miraculous, visible results from minimal effort. A few crunches, a few minutes of cardio, some kind of magic drink that you add to your morning routine without changing anything else. Zero dietary changes required, zero lifestyle shifts. Just do the thing, and watch the belly disappear. About 3% of those views went to videos that at least mentioned diet. But even those videos still framed it as a quick fix. Lose belly fat in 10 days with this diet. Same promise, different packaging. And here's the number that genuinely shocked me. You had to scroll all the way past 75 videos before you found a single one that talked about root causes, that talked about metabolism, that talked about why belly fat forms in the first place, and what it actually takes to make it go away permanently. For every one person searching for real answers, 250 people were searching for a shortcut. And I get it. I really do. We are a quick fix culture. Last year in the United States we spent $5.6 trillion on sick care, managing the consequences of chronic disease. We spent $2 billion on prevention. That is $2,800 in consequence management for every single dollar spent on prevention. Think about what that tells you about the incentive structure. The system profits when you stay sick. A healthy population is not a profitable population for the sick care industry. I know that sounds harsh, but understanding this reality is part of understanding why the information landscape looks the way it does, and why you have to be your own advocate when it comes to your health. So let's start at the beginning. What is belly fat, really? Belly fat, specifically the visceral fat that accumulates deep in your abdomen, around your organs, is not just stored energy that you haven't burned yet. It is a symptom. It is your body's visible response to a metabolic system that has been disrupted. Here is how it happens. When you eat foods high in sugar, refined flour, and ultra-processed ingredients, two things occur simultaneously. First, those foods generate an intense reward signal in your brain. They feel good to eat, they hit fast, and they create a craving loop. Second, those same foods are almost completely devoid of the nutrients your body actually needs to function. So you get the reward, but your body doesn't get what it needs. What does it do? It asks for more food. You eat more. Your blood sugar spikes again. Your body releases more insulin to handle it. And then it happens again and again. Over time, your cells stop responding normally to insulin. They've been flooded with it for so long that they've started to tune it out. This is insulin resistance, and it is the central driver of stubborn belly fat. Here's the key mechanism. Insulin is a storage hormone. When insulin is high, your body is in fat storage mode. It is not burning fat, it is locking fat away. And visceral belly fat, in particular, is acutely sensitive to insulin levels. Then something else kicks in. Chronically elevated insulin triggers inflammation. And that inflammation, in turn, makes your insulin resistance worse. It's a self-reinforcing cycle. Inflammation feeds insulin resistance. Insulin resistance feeds more fat storage. Fat storage drives more inflammation. Round and round. And this is why the calorie equation, on its own, fails so many people. It's not about the number of calories you're eating. It's about what those calories are doing to your hormones. Specifically, it's about how those calories are driving insulin. Because a diet that keeps insulin elevated will keep you in fat storage mode no matter how few calories you eat. This is not a personal failing. This is biology. Now I want to address the exercise piece, because this is where most of those 1.5 billion views completely mislead people, and where the real harm gets done. If you have belly fat, especially stubborn visceral belly fat, there is a very high probability that you are insulin resistant. And if you are insulin resistant, your body cannot generate energy the way a metabolically healthy person's body can. This changes everything about how exercise affects you. Here's what happens physiologically. A metabolically healthy person can tap into their fat stores for fuel almost on demand. During exercise, their body shifts fluidly between glucose and fat, depending on intensity. They burn fat, they recover well, they build muscle efficiently. Exercise works beautifully for them, because their metabolic machinery is intact. Now what happens when you're insulin resistant? Insulin resistance essentially locks your fat stores. There is a net biological pressure keeping that fat in storage. Your body cannot access it efficiently. So when you start exercising, and your energy demands increase, your body does what it can. It burns through its glucose reserves, the glycogen stored in your muscles and liver. Here's the thing about glycogen. It binds water. About 3 to 4 grams of water for every gram of glycogen. So when you burn through glycogen in the first few days of exercise, your body releases that water. You lose weight on the scale. You feel like it's working. But you haven't burned a single gram of fat yet. Once the glycogen runs low, your body, which cannot access fat the way it should, starts to panic. It lowers your basal metabolic rate to protect its remaining stores. It generates hunger signals, specifically cravings for carbohydrates, to get you to replenish what was burned. And it produces lactic acid, because you're relying on glucose for energy at an intensity your body isn't equipped to handle. That lactic acid is the burning sensation in your muscles during hard exercise. And for someone who is insulin resistant, that burn is far more severe than it would be for a metabolically healthy person doing the same workout. You feel like you're working twice as hard and getting nowhere. Because physiologically you are. And then there's the cortisol piece. When you push your body hard through exercise while it's operating under metabolic stress, when it can't generate energy properly, it perceives this as a threat. And it responds by releasing cortisol. Cortisol is your primary stress hormone, and its job is to raise blood sugar during times of crisis. It makes your liver produce more glucose. It also increases your appetite, especially for sugar and fast-burning carbohydrates. And here is the part that most of those YouTube videos are completely unaware of. Cortisol is the hormone most specifically correlated with visceral belly fat. Not general fat gain, visceral, abdominal fat. Insulin increases fat storage broadly across the body, but cortisol targets the belly specifically. So if you're insulin resistant and you start doing high-intensity exercise without first addressing your metabolic state, you are triggering a cortisol response that is actively driving more belly fat. You are working against yourself, and it's not your fault, because no one explained this to you. If your adrenal glands are under chronic stress from this cycle, you may also develop what's called adrenal fatigue, a state where your cortisol output becomes dysregulated. And a downstream consequence of that is reduced thyroid activity, which lowers your metabolism further. This is not a spiral you can exercise your way out of. It is a spiral you have to metabolically address first. Exercise is not optional. I want to be very clear about that. Humans need to move. Movement is fundamental to our biology. But the type of movement, and the timing of it relative to your metabolic state, matters enormously. And that's what no one is telling you. Alright. Let's talk about solutions, because this is absolutely fixable. It's just not fast. And the fact that it's not fast is not a design flaw, it's biology. The most direct way to begin healing a broken metabolism is to reduce how much insulin your body has to produce. And the most direct way to do that is to reduce the frequency and type of foods that spike insulin in the first place. Start with meal frequency. Rather than eating 4, 5, or 6 times a day, which means your body is producing insulin almost continuously, reduce to 1 to 2 meals per day. A good starting framework is the 16-8 intermittent fasting window. Eat your meals within an 8-hour period and fast for the remaining 16 hours. If you sleep 8 hours, half of that fasting window happens while you're asleep. You're essentially just adjusting when you have your first meal and when you have your last one. Eat between noon and 7 in the evening, or between 8 in the morning and 4 in the afternoon. whatever fits your life. The key is giving your body 16 hours without an insulin spike. That is 16 hours of repair time, 16 hours of slowly improving insulin sensitivity. The more insulin resistant you are, the more beneficial it is to lean toward one meal per day during your healing phase. You can reassess as your metabolism improves. Now, what you eat matters just as much as when you eat. If sugar and ultra-processed foods are the primary drivers of insulin resistance, then the path forward is clear: remove them. Not forever, but long enough to let your body begin to recover. Shift to whole foods, low carbohydrate, higher healthy fat. This doesn't mean you have to follow a strict ketogenic protocol, though for some people that is highly effective. For most people, it means eating the way your ancestors ate, food that comes from the earth, not from a factory. No packaged foods, no refined sugar, no white flour. Call it paleo, call it whole food, call it low carb. The label doesn't matter. What matters is that you are removing the primary hormonal triggers that are keeping your fat stores locked. Now I want to spend a moment on sleep, because this one is consistently underestimated, and the science here is genuinely striking. A single night of poor sleep, just one night, can make you up to 25% more insulin resistant the next morning, not 25% worse over time, 25% worse the next day, because poor sleep drives cortisol up. And cortisol, as we've established, drives insulin resistance and promotes visceral fat accumulation. If you are doing everything right with your diet and your exercise but you're sleeping 5 hours a night under chronic stress, you are fighting a battle that the diet alone cannot win. Sleep is not a lifestyle luxury, it is a metabolic intervention. For the same reason, chronic psychological stress has to be addressed. Stress raises cortisol. Cortisol raises insulin resistance. Insulin resistance promotes belly fat storage. Whether your stress comes from work, relationships, financial pressure, or health anxiety, it has a direct biological impact on your ability to lose visceral fat. Find what works for you: breath work, daily walking in nature, reducing obligations, whatever lowers your baseline cortisol. Build it into your protocol the way you build in your eating window. Now we can talk about exercise. And the right exercise for someone who is metabolically compromised looks very different from the videos you've been watching. Resistance training is valuable, not because it burns a lot of fat directly, but because muscle tissue is metabolically active. Building and maintaining muscle improves your body's ability to utilize glucose without insulin over time. You don't need a gym membership, bands, bodyweight squats, basic dumbbell movements. The goal is to engage your muscles consistently without pushing into metabolic exhaustion. The more critical piece, especially early in your healing process, is aerobic exercise. And for most people who are insulin resistant, aerobic exercise means one thing: walking. I know that sounds underwhelming compared to a 45-minute HIIT class, but here is why it matters. When you walk at a pace that allows you to speak in full sentences, or at most broken into 2 short fragments, you are in a true aerobic state. Your body is using oxygen efficiently, and at that intensity, it can begin to access fat as fuel, even when metabolic flexibility is compromised. The moment you start huffing and puffing, you've crossed into anaerobic territory. You're burning glucose, not fat. You're producing lactic acid. You're activating the cortisol response. So walk consistently, at a comfortable pace, every day if possible. This is not a consolation prize. This is a legitimate metabolic intervention. Now let's close with something I think is more valuable than any specific protocol: a realistic picture of what this journey actually looks like. In the first 2 to 4 weeks, you won't see dramatic visible changes. What you're doing in this phase is beginning metabolic adaptation. You are teaching your body's enzyme pathways to access fat for fuel. You are starting to reduce chronic insulin levels. You are establishing the conditions for healing. It is foundational work, and most of it is invisible, but it is real, and it is happening. Between 2 and 3 months, you will begin to see visible changes. Your clothes will fit differently. Your energy will stabilize. If you get blood work done, you may see your fasting insulin improving, your triglycerides coming down, your liver enzymes normalizing. Your body is telling you, biochemically, that things are shifting. Between 6 and 12 months, and this is the phase the quick fix industry never wants you to reach, you begin to achieve something called metabolic flexibility. Your body can now move between glucose and fat for fuel efficiently. Your hormones are more balanced. You are no longer at the mercy of cravings and crashes. This is sustainable, root cause healing, and it is absolutely worth every month of patient effort to get there. As your metabolism heals, your exercise capacity will improve as well. That's when you can begin to increase intensity. That's when, if you want to add higher intensity training, your body will actually respond to it the way it's supposed to. Here's the reality. Most of the YouTube creators making belly fat videos are in their 20s and 30s. They are metabolically healthy. They have never experienced what it means to be insulin resistant. When they do a 7-minute ab workout and it works for them, they genuinely believe it will work for you. They don't know what they don't know. And the sick care system, by and large, profits from keeping people in a cycle of managed symptoms rather than root cause healing. That is not cynicism. That is the financial reality of a $5.6 trillion industry. But you're here, which means something brought you to this conversation. And now you understand something that the vast majority of people, including many healthcare providers, do not fully grasp. Belly fat is a hormonal symptom of metabolic dysfunction. You heal the metabolism first, the fat follows. There is no shortcut, but there is a path, and your body is fully capable of walking it. If this video gave you clarity you haven't found anywhere else, please share it with someone who needs it. Subscribe to this channel, because every single week, we go deep into root causes, not quick fixes. And I will see you in the next one.